So I noticed some water on the floor, some standing water right there, and realized that the car might be leaking somewhere. And then, when I removed the headliner, I realized that it was definitely leaking. And it's leaking somewhere pretty badly. Yeah, that's all water. And I'm gonna have to figure out where it is coming from. There's the water draining out of the inside of the car. On both sides you can see it. I had to drill holes in the floorboard like that right there, and that one into the water to empty out this water that I since collected. Now, since it is just such a beautiful day outside today, I thought it'd be the perfect chance to go through with you guys what I'm planning to do with Project TrackBeast here. So we're gonna go through the car, I'm gonna show you my initial plans, and you know, nothing's set in stone, but this is what we're gonna be aiming to do here in the next coming weeks. Starting with the basics, we're going to be going with a full custom suspension setup, as a car like this obviously has a very, very small aftermarket community. And so that's a big bonus about this whole project, is that a lot of this is going to be fabrication. So for you guys who might not have a conventional car like a 240 or a Super or something like that, that they have tons of aftermarket parts for, this is going to be a great video to show you how to fabricate your own stuff. But we're going to be doing a full custom suspension setup, which means we have to change out the axles. Since this is going from front wheel drive to rear, we will be custom making a rear axle set for it, probably going to be stripping that off an old Corvette and modifying it from there. We are running full big brake packages, lightweight racing wheels, low profile tires, the whole shebang. Now here in the back, we're going to be doing a completely custom job. We are going to be putting a large rear diffuser on the back, help suck that rear of the car down. We're going to have a racing exhaust coming straight out of the back here, cutting through in between the two tail lights, and we're going to have a very large racing rear spoiler that is going to be attached under the bumper at the frame. Along with that, I am planning to run, of course, custom made and fabricated wide body type fenders here in the front and the rear, so that we can stick much fatter tires front and rear on the car, as well as running wheel spacers, so we can get this car having a nice dropped low and square stance on the roadway, as this car will be riding as close to the roadway as I can get it, as this will be a primary use as a track car. And of course, with any car this age, we have some damage that needs to be fixed. This large dent was caused by myself when I had backed the car into a porch, and as you can see down here on the ground, we have large flecks of paint that are just coming off in chunks right here. So that is something that needs to be fixed. I suspect that that rust is too bad to get out on the surface, because these door skins are quite thin steel. So we will likely have to be replacing that whole door skin or the entire door itself. Now I know the lighting is not great and it is a little difficult to see, but that little piece of plastic coming off the bottom of the bumper, that's the stock spoiler. It's very, very small, and my plan is to be running a complete splitter, a front splitter coming off of the bumper. Again, just like most everything we're going to be doing, it's going to have to be completely fabricated. And now, the most important part of any track car. What we will be using as a motor. Now, I will obviously not be keeping the standard 3.1 liter V6 out of this car, as it is in no way really conducive to be a track motor, even modified. I do not see a purpose or a reason why anyone would modify this motor. That and the fact that its transmission is built for front wheel drive. So we will be completely gutting everything in here. I'll be showing you how to fabricate and install your own tube chassis for multiple reasons. Reason number one, it strengthens the car greatly. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be welding some roll cage material to the front of the car, starting at the shock towers. I know it's hard to see with the sun glare, but the shock tower is right here. We'll be welding a large brace, a base plate for the chassis, and we'll be welding tubes and tubing in this whole front frame. The nice thing is you can make these removable. Now, my plan is to make a removable tube chassis for two reasons. One, it allows for the easiest engine repair and access that you can get, where if you can just take the whole front of the car off with 8 bolts. And number two, if you do have an accident, you are not going to damage the very hard to repair underbody or the unibody chassis that is attached to the car. So with the removable tube chassis, you also have the ability to build spares. And if you do have an accident, you can just take off the old damaged piece, have a new fender ready, pop on the new chassis and the new fender, and you are all set to go. The bumper, headlights, the fenders, they will hang off of the tube chassis, but pretty much everything else you see here, pretty much every other piece of metal, from the core support right here, the radiator supports, the engine mounts, everything is going to be replaced. Everything is going to be cut out of here. And that's another big bonus of the tube chassis. The amount of weight you save is incredible, which is important considering how heavy this car is and how heavy I want it to be. Hopefully I will be able at the end of this project to have cut out about 1,000 pounds out of this car. Another important benefit of having a tube chassis is the amount of weight that you cut out. I mean, this core support here is very, very, very thick steel. This car in and of itself is not a lightweight. It is one of the heaviest four-door sedans that I've seen from this era, outside of Volvo. But we will be removing the core supports, we will be removing all of the unibody frame, which is from pretty much every piece of sheet metal from the shock tower forward is going to be gone and replaced with very lightweight, very strong roll cage material. Now, with as heavy as this car is now, no matter what power plant I put into this car, it doesn't really matter because you will not be able to get everything that we want out of this car being as heavy as it is. The manufacturer vehicle weight of this car is over 2 tons. In fact, I've done the calculations with a full tank of gas and me in it. This thing weighs more than 2.2 tons. It's over 4,400 pounds. And that is way too heavy. Now, luckily, with just doing standard, fabrication, the standard tube chassis, removing the interior, all that, we will be stripping out a lot of weight, as well as the older internals, which are all steel. That motor is it's not aluminum. It is a very old motor, old transmission. This thing weighs a lot, and just replacing these components will save a lot of weight. And cutting out this sheet metal for the tube frame will help with that. And one of the last great benefits of a tube chassis is you have so much more room to work with. With this kind of core support and unibody sheet metal in here, you have a lot of constricted space. Right now, the 3.1 liter V6 is taking up pretty much the entire engine bay. And we would not be able to fit very much because the firewall is actually pretty dang close right under the windshield, and so it is a little bit of a tight space right now. Now, I'm sure people are wondering what I am planning to put into this car. I am ultimately planning to put a 1UZ-FE Toyota 4-liter quad-cam V8 into the front of this car. I've always loved the quad-cam V8. My dad had an old Lexus LS400. It was just the best motor I've ever seen. That thing lasted unaltered with the exception of a couple small repairs for more than 300,000 miles and is still running today. It is just a fantastic thing. I love the quad cam feature of it. It's an aluminum block V8. It's 4 liters. It's a very small capacity V8, so it's going to have a small displacement, which means that I can fit it into an engine bay easier. I'll have more room to do what I want with it, as well as it being more reliable. When you have 4 liters of displacement, you have a lot less mass moving around at thousands of RPM than if you had a 6.3 liter, an LS swap. And just like the 2 JZ swaps, I am really tired of LS swaps, so we're not going to do something as simple and boring as that, even though it would be a much simpler process and it would fit in here. So that is the ultimate goal. We are going to be running a 4-liter quad cam 1UZ-FE V8. As you can see, I have removed almost all of the interior. The headliner is gone, all of the seats are gone, all of the carpets are gone, some of the sound deadening is gone. The only thing that are left in are the door cards, because I did not want to damage the window winding mechanism, because this car will not have AC. And I will only be driving it during the summertime on the roadways, so I will want to have the windows to be operational. And I did not just want to yank the door cards out because they need to have the window winders removed first. And so I'll be waiting until I get the proper tool, but though those doors are not important, I will not be doing anything with them for the time being. As you can see, most of the dashboard has already been removed as well, and I do apologize for not getting that on film. However, just like the general interior, it is a very simple process. All you need to do is find the first components, most of them, just like on the door cards here. The fake wood pops off. Pry that off, it's on with clips, and underneath you'll start seeing bolts for different components. And it's kind of simply going through and bolting the components until you can remove said components. So right now what we have is the gauge pod out, the radio out, the glove box out, the stereo out, the air conditioning control unit out, one of the speakers out, the other speaker is still in there, as well as most of the wiring. So the last thing we need to pull out from here are the speakers. We have a couple more connectors, a couple more buttons, and the dash cover that's sitting on there right now. Underneath that we have the dash support, and then finally the steering wheel and steering column, and that dashboard will be gone. This, again, going with as light as possible, will be a completely fabricated dashboard. It's going to have custom gauge pods, so I have all the gauges that I need where I want them. It's going to allow me to do pretty much whatever I want and not be restricted by space, because I can create as much space as I need. Sorry about the bad camera angle, but as you can see back here, this is the support underneath the rear windshield. It is the rear where the speakers were sitting. It's the support that the seats were sitting on, and it opens up to the trunk. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be removing all of that sheet metal. Here is a closer look at that support. Now see, this is all just sheet metal that has been spot welded into place. This is a lot of weight and a lot of support for the rear seat belts as well as the rear seats, both of which will not be coming back into this car. So all of the sheet metal is going to be removed, and to keep the rigidity of the chassis that we have here, we will be running a couple of struts built into the roll cage that will be connecting both the rear suspension towers as well as the chassis up here at the top. Now I'm planning to have two exhaust systems on this car, as again I've stated it's going to be road legal. So I will have one exhaust system that has full cats, full mufflers, full everything, and then we will have a butterfly valve that opens it up to the straight pipes for the track that just shoots straight out the back of the car. Now those will be coming up through the spare tire well right down there and straight out the back where I had pointed out earlier. And so those guys will be heat wrapped as to kind of protect the interior from too much heat coming into the car. And we'll be coming straight out the back just like that. We will have a rear mounted battery as well as all the electrical cutoffs, the fuel cutoffs, and the fire extinguisher system running back here as well. But I'm planning to run a full spec racing fuel cell here. Puncture proof, bolted down to the floor of the car on supports within the roll cage. That way we can prevent possible punctures or fire damage, as the fuel tank cannot be hit while it is sitting inside of a roll cage. But as you can see, there is no transmission tunnel in this car, as it was a front-wheel drive vehicle. So that is something that we will also have to be manufacturing and fabricating. I will have to be cutting through the firewall on the floor and welding up my own transmission tunnel to fit the transmission onto the Toyota V8. Now I have not decided. I want this car to be either a sequential shift or a manual. We will be running either a 6-speed manual or a sequential gearbox on a custom-made transmission tunnel.